Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The day I found the sex toys in my wife's work bag, I didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't even cry. I just stood there in our bedroom, holding a bottle of strawberry-flavored lubricant I'd never seen before, and laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind that comes from somewhere dark and twisted. The kind that says your brain is recalculating everything you thought you knew about your life. My name is Tom Riley. I'm 39 years old. I manage a decent Italian restaurant called Marcello's on the east side of Fairfield. And up until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a pretty good marriage. Sure, Marissa and I had been going through a rough patch. What couple doesn't after 14 years? But I figured we'd work through it. Date nights, maybe some counseling, the usual middle-aged marriage maintenance. I was wrong. The toys weren't even hidden well, just sitting there in her leather work tote, tucked under some manila folders, and her laptop. I'd only been looking for her phone charger, because mine had died, and I needed to check the restaurant's delivery schedule. Instead, I found a purple vibrator, a pair of fuzzy handcuffs, and that damn strawberry lube. Here's the thing that really got me. Strawberry. Marissa hated fruit-flavored anything. She'd lectured me for 10 minutes once about how artificial strawberry flavoring gave her migraines. But apparently, someone else's preferences mattered more than her alleged migraines. I sat on the edge of our bed, the bottle in my hand, and started putting pieces together. The late nights at the office, the new lingerie I'd never seen her wear around me, the way she'd started showering immediately when she got home, before even saying hello, the girls' nights that happened every Thursday like clockwork. My phone buzzed. Drew, my bartender, and probably my only real friend these days. "Yo, boss, you coming in today or what?" "Yeah," I texted back. "I'm just dealing with something at home." "Everything cool?" I looked at the sex toys spread across our marital bed. Peachy. I didn't confront Marissa that night, or the next night. I watched her instead, really watched her for the first time in months. The way she smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she'd started dressing nicer for work, spending an extra 20 minutes on her makeup. The way she'd stopped asking about my day. On the third night, I went to Murphy's Pub, the dive bar 2 blocks from Marissa's office building. Drew worked there on weekends for extra cash, and he knew everything that happened in Fairfield. Small towns are like that. Everyone knows everyone's business. They just pretend they don't. "Tom Riley," Drew said, sliding me a beer before I even sat down. "You look like hell." "Thanks. You always know how to make a guy feel special." He leaned on the bar, lowering his voice. "So, you want to talk about it, or are we doing the strong silent type thing?" "Talk about what?" Drew gave me a look. He was 42, had been tending bars since he was 21, and could read people like they were wearing their thoughts on t-shirts. "Come on, man, this is me." I took a long drink. "How long have you known?" "About Marissa and Brian Carter." He winced. 6 months, maybe 7. Brian Carter, Marissa's boss. The guy she talked about constantly when she first started at Westfield Industries 3 years ago. Brian says this, Brian thinks that. Brian is so smart. I'd met him twice at company parties. Slick hair, expensive suits, the kind of smile that made you want to check if your wallet was still in your pocket. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me?" Drew asked. 6 months ago, if I'd said your wife was screwing her boss, you'd have told me I was crazy." He was right. I would have. "They come in here every Thursday," Drew continued. "Usually around 7. She tells you it's girls' night, right?" I nodded, feeling sick. "Yeah. They sit in that corner booth, have a few drinks, then head to the Fairfield Inn across the street. Like clockwork." He paused. "Tom, I'm sorry, man. I should have—" "No," I interrupted. "You did right. I needed to figure it out myself. But I hadn't figured it out. I'd stumbled into it. Literally tripped over her infidelity while looking for a phone charger. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. I went home that night and did something I'm not proud of. I went through Marissa's laptop while she was in the shower. Her password was our wedding anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her email was a goldmine of betrayal. Hundreds of messages between her and Brian, going back almost 2 years. Not just sex stuff, though there was plenty of that. They'd been planning things. Weekend trips they'd taken while I thought she was at conferences. Expensive dinners charged to his corporate card. They'd even joked about me. "Tom's so clueless," one email read. I could probably bring you home for dinner and he wouldn't notice. Brian's response, LOL. Poor bastard. But hey, his loss is my gain. I sat there in our home office, reading email after email, and something inside me changed. The hurt was still there, sure, but it was getting buried under something else. Something colder and sharper. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make them itch. The idea came to me around 2 in the morning. I was lying in bed next to Marissa, listening to her breathe, thinking about that strawberry lube. She'd be seeing Brian tomorrow. Thursday, girls' night. They'd have their drinks, go to their hotel room, and use those toys. Unless I made a small modification. I waited until Marissa left for work the next morning, then drove to 3 different pharmacies across town. Didn't want anyone getting suspicious. At each one, I bought itching powder, the kind they sell as a prank item, mostly to teenagers. 9 packets total. The labels warned against contact with sensitive areas. Perfect. Back home, I carefully opened the bottle of strawberry lube. It was still mostly full. I emptied all 9 packets into it, then shook it gently until the powder dissolved. The consistency looked a little different, maybe slightly cloudier, but nothing too obvious. I sealed it back up, wiped down the bottle, and placed it exactly where I'd found it in her work bag. Then, I waited. Thursday crawled by like a wounded animal. I went to work, did my job, smiled at customers, approved orders. Inside, I was counting down the hours. Drew texted me around 6. They just walked in. You sure about this, man? Positive, I replied. At 8:30, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, Marissa called. I answered on the 3rd ring, trying to sound casual. Hey, babe, what's up? Tom. Her voice was strained, tight with panic. I need you to come to Fairfield Memorial, right now. What? Why? Are you okay? Just, please, emergency room, hurry. She hung up before I could ask more questions. I took my time getting there, stopped for gas, grabbed a coffee, let her sweat for 45 minutes before I walked through those ER doors. The scene was better than I'd imagined. Marissa was in a curtained-off area, lying on a gurney, her face red and splotchy. A nurse was applying some kind of cream to her arms. When she saw me, she burst into tears. Tom, thank God. It's awful. I'm having some kind of allergic reaction and... Where? I asked, all concerned husband. Where's the reaction? She looked away. Everywhere. A doctor pushed through the curtain, looking tired and annoyed. Mr. Riley? That's me. Your wife is experiencing a severe contact dermatitis reaction. We're treating her with antihistamines and corticosteroid cream. She should be fine in a few days, though she'll be quite uncomfortable. He glanced at his chart. The reaction appears to be concentrated in the genital and anal regions, as well as her hands, and I get the picture, I said, fighting to keep my expression neutral. Any idea what caused it? The doctor looked uncomfortable. She mentioned using a personal lubricant. We believe it may have been contaminated with an irritant. Contaminated, I repeated. Wow, that's terrible. Babe, where'd you get this lubricant? Marissa's eyes went wide. I don't remember. Maybe online? Huh, weird. We should definitely report that to the FDA or something. I turned to the doctor. Is she the only one affected? I mean, if it was contaminated, wouldn't her partner also have symptoms? The doctor shifted uncomfortably. Actually, yes. There's another patient with similar symptoms. He's being treated in the next bay. He? I looked at Marissa. I thought you were at girls' night. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. No sound came out. Must be a coincidence, I said cheerfully. Small world, right? 2 people having the same allergic reaction at the same time in the same hospital. A commotion erupted from the next bay over. A woman's voice shrill and angry. What do you mean, contaminated lubricant? Brian, what the hell were you doing that you needed lubricant? I smiled. Oh, man. That poor guy. His wife sounds pissed. Marissa grabbed my arm. Tom, please. Please what? I kept my voice low, gentle even. Please don't ask questions. Please pretend I'm stupid. Please keep being the clueless husband while you screw your boss. Her face went pale under the red splotches. Yeah, I said, I know. Have known for a while now. But don't worry. We'll talk about this at home, after you're done itching. I patted her hand. The doctor said a few days, right? That's going to be rough, especially in those sensitive areas. But hey, at least you and Brian can be miserable together. I walked out before she could respond, passing the bay where Brian Carter was getting the same treatment. His wife, a blonde woman I vaguely recognized from company parties, was standing over him, screaming about divorce lawyers. Brian saw me through the gap in the curtain. Our eyes met. I gave him a little wave and a smile. The real show was just starting. Over the next week, I played the role of concerned, confused husband perfectly. I brought Marissa soup, asked her how she was feeling. Didn't mention Brian or the affair at all. She didn't know what to do with that. She kept waiting for me to explode, to accuse her, to demand answers. I did none of those things. Instead, I did my research. I logged into her laptop every night while she slept, courtesy of the sleeping pills her doctor had prescribed for the stress. I downloaded everything. Every email, every text message she'd synced to her computer, every photo. I learned that Brian wasn't just her boss. He was a predator. There were messages from other women in the company, interns mostly, young women who'd been promised promotions and gotten harassment instead. I also learned that Marissa wasn't some innocent victim. She'd known about the other women, had even helped Brian cover up a complaint from a 23-year-old intern named Sarah Chen last year. They'd worked together to discredit her, to make her look unstable. Sarah had eventually quit and left town. The more I read, the angrier I got. Not the hot, explosive anger that makes you do stupid things. The cold, calculating kind that makes you dangerous. I also discovered something interesting in Brian's emails to Marissa. He'd been embezzling from Westfield Industries. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. He'd been using shell companies and fake vendor accounts, and Marissa had been helping him, handling the paperwork through HR to make it look legitimate. They'd stolen almost $200,000 over 18 months. That was my insurance policy. On Monday, exactly 10 days after the hospital incident, I went to visit Drew at Murphy's during his day shift. You look different, he said, studying my face. Scary different. I need a favor. Name it. I need you to spread some gossip. Can you do that? Drew grinned. Brother, that's literally my job. I told him what to say. Nothing too specific, nothing that could be traced back to me. Just little comments here and there. Did you hear about that thing at the hospital? Yeah, something about Brian Carter and someone from his office. No way, really. Isn't he married? Yep, and so is she. Small towns are like dry kindling. You just need a spark. By Wednesday, everyone knew. The grocery store cashiers, the guys at the gas station, the other restaurant owners, and most importantly, people at Westfield Industries. Marissa came home that night in tears. People are talking, Tom, at work. They're saying things about me and Brian. What kind of things? I asked, not looking up from my phone. That we had an affair. That we were together at the hospital. Were you? She hesitated too long. No, of course not. Then you have nothing to worry about, I said. Truth always comes out eventually, right? She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe the old Tom Riley, the one who trusted his wife and believed in happy endings, had died in our bedroom 3 weeks ago. This new Tom was someone different. Someone who understood that sometimes the only way to deal with poison is to let it run its course. Thursday morning, I made my next move. I'd created a fake email account weeks ago, completely untraceable. From that account, I sent an anonymous email to Westfield Industries' ethics hotline. The email contained detailed information about Brian's embezzlement, complete with account numbers, dates, and amounts. I also included several of the more explicit emails between Brian and Marissa, the ones where they discussed the scheme. I didn't mention the affair, didn't need to. That was already spreading like wildfire on its own. By Friday afternoon, Brian had been escorted out of the building by security. By Monday, Marissa was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. She came home that day destroyed. They think I was involved in something. Some financial thing with Brian? Tom, I swear I didn't. Didn't what? I asked. Didn't do anything wrong? I looked at her for a long moment. Okay. Okay? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Marissa? That I believe you? That I trust you? We both know those would be lies. She crumpled onto the couch. You know. About Brian. Of course I know. I've known for weeks. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see how far you'd go. How long you'd lie to my face. I sat down across from her. 2 years, Marissa. 2 years you've been screwing him. 2 years you've been stealing from your company. 2 years you've been making me look like an idiot. We weren't stealing. Don't, I interrupted. I have all the emails. I have everything. The fake vendor accounts, the shell companies, all of it. You and Brian have been running a pretty sweet embezzlement scheme. Very creative, actually. I'm almost impressed. Her face went white. What are you—
Your ex, the one you said you blocked, 300 messages this month.
He contacted me from—
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
going to do? Me? Nothing. I already did it. I sent everything to your company's ethics hotline. Anonymously, of course. I'm not stupid. You reported us? I reported Brian, I corrected. The fact that you were involved? That's just unfortunate collateral damage. Kind of like how I was collateral damage in your affair. She started crying. Big, ugly sobs that once upon a time would have broken my heart. Now they just annoyed me. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. You're going to be fired. Probably prosecuted. Brian, too. His wife is already filing for divorce. I heard through the grapevine. You'll lose your job, your reputation, probably your freedom for a while. And me? I smiled. I'm going to file for divorce. You won't get anything. Not the house, not my restaurant, nothing. Because you're about to be a convicted felon, and judges don't look kindly on that. Tom, please, I'm not done. My voice was still calm, still cold. Your friends? The ones you've been going to girls' night with while you were actually screwing Brian? I sent them all copies of your emails, too. The ones where you called Jenna fat, said Tiff was desperate and pathetic, laughed about how stupid they were for believing your lies. So you won't have them either. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Because you made me itch, I said. And now I'm making sure you never stop scratching. The next few weeks were beautiful chaos. Brian was arrested for embezzlement. Marissa was fired and charged as an accomplice. The local news covered it. Local HR manager involved in corporate theft scheme. Her mother called me, screaming about how I'd destroyed her daughter's life. I hung up on her. Marissa moved out, went to stay with her mom. I changed the locks, filed for divorce. The papers cited adultery and fraud. My lawyer said it would be quick and clean. Marissa had no leg to stand on. But I wasn't done. Not even close. See, I'd made copies of everything. Every email, every text, every piece of evidence. And I knew something that nobody else did. Brian and Marissa weren't the only ones involved in the embezzlement. There were 3 other employees at Westfield who'd been helping them, taking smaller cuts. One of them was Jenna, Marissa's best friend. I sat on that information for 2 months, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment came when Marissa's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been coerced by Brian, that she was a victim of his manipulation. The judge seemed sympathetic. She might actually get a reduced sentence. That's when I sent the additional evidence to the prosecutor. The emails proving Marissa had recruited Jenna. The messages showing she'd been the mastermind behind several of the fake vendors. The proof that she'd been stealing for months before Brian even knew about it. The prosecutor called me to verify the information. Mr. Riley, this paints a very different picture of your wife's involvement. Ex-wife, I corrected. And yes, I imagine it does. Why didn't you provide this earlier? I wanted to see if she'd tell the truth. She didn't. So now you have the whole truth. Marissa's plea deal evaporated. She was looking at 5 to 7 years. Jenna got 3. Brian got 10 because he had priors I hadn't even known about. The day Marissa was sentenced, I was at Marcello's, going over inventory with my assistant manager. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Local woman sentenced to 6 years in embezzlement scheme. Drew, who was helping me reorganize the bar, looked over my shoulder. You okay, man? Yeah, I said and meant it. I'm good. That's cold, what you did. Not saying she didn't deserve it, but damn. She made her choices. I just made sure she faced the consequences. And you're really okay with all this? No regrets? I thought about it. 14 years of marriage, gone. The woman I'd loved, destroyed. My old life, completely dismantled. You know what the funny thing is? I said. I gave her everything. My trust, my love, my loyalty. And she threw it away for a few thrills and some stolen money. So no, I don't have regrets. She wanted to scratch an itch. I just made sure she'd be scratching it for a very long time. 6 months later, I was doing better than I'd ever been. Marcello's was thriving. Turns out being the wronged husband in a major local scandal was great for business. People came in to show support, stayed for the food. I'd hired 3 new staff members and was considering opening a second location. I'd also started dating. Nothing serious, just casual dinners and movies. It felt good to be wanted again, to be with someone who actually wanted to be with me. One evening, I was closing up the restaurant when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Tom Riley? A woman's voice, young, uncertain. Speaking. My name is Sarah Chen. I don't know if you remember me, but I used to work at Westfield Industries. I remembered. The intern Marissa and Brian had destroyed. I remember. What can I do for you, Sarah? I just wanted to say thank you for what you did, for exposing them. I didn't do it for you. I did it for me. I know, but it helped me anyway. After what they did, after they made everyone think I was crazy, I thought I'd never work in this industry again. But now that the truth is out, companies are calling me. I got a job offer last week at a firm in Chicago, a good one. That's great, Sarah. I'm happy for you. I also wanted you to know there were others. Other women Brian harassed. They're coming forward now. There's going to be a civil suit. We're all testifying. Good. He deserves whatever he gets. So does she, Sarah said quietly. Marissa, she knew what he was doing to us, and she helped him cover it up. She was just as bad. Worse, I said. Brian was a predator, but at least he was honest about being a piece of garbage. Marissa pretended to be a good person while enabling him. That's a special kind of evil. We talked for a few more minutes, then said goodbye. After I hung up, I stood in my empty restaurant, looking at everything I'd built, everything I'd saved by burning my old life to the ground. My phone buzzed, a text from Drew. Drinks tomorrow? Got some gossip you'll want to hear. I smiled. Always. The thing about revenge is that people think it's supposed to make you feel better. It doesn't. Not really. It doesn't heal the wound or erase the betrayal. But it does something else. Something maybe more important. It restores balance. Marissa and Brian had taken from me my trust, my dignity, my peace of mind. So I took from them everything they valued, everything they'd built, everything they'd stolen. Was it petty? Probably. Was it cruel? Definitely. Did they deserve it? Absolutely. Because here's what I learned. Sometimes the itch isn't the problem. Sometimes you need to itch to know something's wrong. And once you start scratching, once you really dig in and get to the root of it, you find all sorts of interesting things. Rot. Decay. Lies buried so deep they've started to fester. Marissa wanted to scratch an itch. I just helped her scratch it until she bled. A year after the sentencing, I got a letter, prison mail from Marissa. I almost threw it away without reading it, but morbid curiosity won out. Dear Tom, it began. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. For everything. For the affair. For the lying. For destroying what we had. I think about it every day in here. About how good we used to be together. About how I threw it all away. I was selfish and stupid and cruel. You deserved better. I hope someday you can forgive me. Love, Marissa. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Not because I was keeping it for sentimental reasons, but because it was evidence. Evidence that she'd finally admitted what she'd done. Evidence that I'd won. I didn't write back. There was nothing to say. She wanted forgiveness. She could want. She wanted closure. She could stay open. She'd made her bed, or rather, Brian's hotel bed, and now she was lying in it. Life moved on. I dated a teacher named Amy for a few months. Nice woman. Too nice for me, probably. We ended things amicably. Then I met Rachel, a pharmaceutical rep who came into the restaurant for a business dinner. We hit it off. 6 months later, we were serious. A year after that, I proposed. She said yes. On my wedding day to Rachel, 3 years after finding those sex toys, I stood at the altar and realized something. I was happy. Actually, genuinely happy. Not the fake happy I'd been with Marissa, the kind where you pretend everything's fine while slowly dying inside. Real happiness. The kind that comes from being with someone who actually loves you, who chooses you every day. Drew was my best man. During his toast at the reception, he told the story of how we met, how I'd hired him at the restaurant when he was down on his luck. He didn't mention Marissa or the revenge or any of that. He just talked about friendship and second chances and new beginnings. But afterward, when we were alone at the bar, he said, "You know, I never asked. Do you regret it? What you did to her?" I looked across the room at Rachel, who was laughing with her bridesmaids, radiant in her wedding dress. "No," I said, "I don't." She taught me something important. What's that? That sometimes the best revenge isn't about hurting someone. It's about removing them from your life so completely that they become irrelevant. Marissa's in prison. Brian's bankrupt and divorced. And I'm here, married to an amazing woman, running a successful business. Who really won? Drew raised his glass. To winning. To winning, I echoed. That night, lying in bed next to my new wife, I thought about itching powder and sex toys and all the ways a life can fall apart and come back together. I thought about Marissa, probably lying on a prison cot, scratching at regrets she'd never be able to soothe. I thought about Brian, probably living in some shitty apartment, working some dead-end job, his fancy life completely destroyed. And I thought about me, about how I'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to me and turned it into fuel. How I'd let the anger burn cold and clean instead of hot and destructive. How I'd played the long game and won. Rachel stirred beside me. "You okay?" she murmured sleepily. "Yeah," I said, pulling her close. "I'm perfect." And I was. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. Sometimes it's about construction. Building a new life so much better than the old one that the people who tried to break you can only watch from a distance and realize what they lost. Marissa had wanted to scratch an itch. Instead, she'd given me one, and I'd scratched it until I found something better underneath. A life without her in it. The funny thing about itches is that they're temporary. They flare up, demand attention, drive you crazy for a while. But eventually, if you treat them right, they heal. The skin grows back stronger. The irritation fades. You forget it was ever there. That's what happened with Marissa. The betrayal that once consumed me became just a scar. Then not even that. Just a memory of pain that I'd overcome. And every time I looked at Rachel, every time I walked into my restaurant, every time I woke up happy, I was reminded that I'd done more than survive. I'd thrived. 4 years after the divorce, I got another letter from Marissa. This one was shorter. "I heard you got remarried. I'm happy for you, really. You deserve it. I'm up for parole next year. I've been thinking about what I'll do when I get out. Where I'll go, who I'll be. I don't expect you to care. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything. I hope you're happy. M." I burned that letter, didn't even finish reading it. Because that's the thing about winning. You don't need your enemies to acknowledge it. You just need to live well enough that their absence becomes a blessing instead of a curse. Rachel never asked about Marissa. She knew the basics, everyone in town did, but she didn't pry. She understood that some chapters close completely and there's no point in reading them again. We had a daughter. Named her Emma. She had Rachel's eyes and my stubborn streak. When she was born, I held her in the hospital and thought about all the things I'd teach her, about trust and betrayal and consequences, about standing up for yourself and not letting anyone make you feel small, about the difference between revenge and justice. But mostly, I'd teach her about resilience, about how you can be broken and put yourself back together into something stronger, about how the people who hurt you don't get to define you. 5 years after finding those sex toys, I was living a life Marissa couldn't have imagined for me. 2 restaurants, a beautiful wife, a baby daughter, genuine happiness. Meanwhile, she was still in prison, still paying for her choices, still scratching at an itch that would never fully heal. People sometimes asked me if I felt guilty, if I thought I'd gone too far, if I regretted destroying her life. The answer was always the same. No, because I didn't destroy her life. She did that herself. I just made sure everyone else could see the destruction she'd caused. I just held up a mirror and forced her to look at what she'd become. And in doing that, I'd freed myself from the lies, from the betrayal, from the weight of loving someone who didn't love me back. The itch of retribution had healed, leaving behind something better: peace. So when people ask me about revenge, about whether it's worth it, I tell them this: revenge isn't about making someone else hurt. It's about making sure they can't hurt you anymore. It's about taking back the power they stole and using it to build something they can never touch. Marissa had tried to make me small. Instead, she'd made me strong. She'd tried to break me. Instead, she'd rebuilt me into someone better. And that, more than any punishment I'd inflicted, was the real revenge. Living well, living happy, living free. The itch was gone, the wound had healed, and I was finally completely whole.